Hello, today we're going to be talking about tapping and drilling and stopping a 2-inch main using the Mueller tapping equipment. The particular equipment we're going to be using is the D5. I have all the particular parts we're going to use for this instruction today, and I'm going to go over them really quickly. First off, always refer to your Mueller instructions on the D5 machine. This particular one is installing and stopping off low pressure line stopper fittings. So this can guide you through if you have any issues with it. The other manufacturers you can follow is the D5 drilling machine, and this gives you all the different things you're going to be dealing with when using this machine. It'll give you the different cuts, the different sizes, the different equipment you would use for the different fittings that may be on the main. Briefly, I'm going to go over some of the equipment we're going to use for the tap today. First off, we have the D5 machine. It consists of an area to attach your boring bar and a yoke to drive the boring bar. All right, the second one is the machine adapter. This is going to allow you to get this machine into this slide valve that I'm going to show you next. This is the 2-inch slide valve. This allows you to shut the pressure down and allow it back in while you're doing the tap to allow you to remove the machine safely without any pressure release. Next off is the cutting bar. This is the boring bar you're going to be using. It has a shell cutter that allows you to cut a big enough hole to get the stopper through. Today we're actually allowed the ability to use 2 machines so that we can have an easy setup and release. You don't have to keep breaking down the current machine. So that's about it on the tools you're going to use. We have a wrench here. This is the wrench that Mueller recommends you use. It's a square wrench. It won't cause any damage to any of the shafts that you're using. Okay, we're going to get started. Before you get started, you want to make sure that you're wearing all your proper PPE, which includes gloves, safety glasses, and anything else that might be required by the particular gas company that you're working for. So first thing you need to do is to make sure your fitting has been welded on the main and tested according to company procedures. Second off, you want to make sure your pipe threads are slightly doped so that you can attach the slide valve and avoid any leaking gas. So we're going to do that right now. The pipe threads have already been doped. We're going to attach our slide valve before we do anything else. You can hand tighten it. And then you want to use the tool to complete the tightening. This will be done on the outside where you'll see me use it. And to get that as tight as you possibly can. Okay, we're gonna assemble the machine right now. Before we attach the boring bar, we must put the machine adapter on first. Just simply screw that on by hand. Till it's tight. Take your boring bar, slide it through. That screws into the interior threads. You can put that on hand tight. Okay, that's tight. Before you make your cut, you always want to make sure your cutter is sharp and lubed. Here we have the Mueller lube grease. You just simply take the grease and stick it on there. You always make sure it's lubed up before the cut. It'll heat up, drip down, and lubricate the cut as you're going. Now what we want to do is make sure the boring bar comes up by just simply letting the machine rest down till it gets to the bottom. Now to put this on the slide valve, we want to hold the boring bar and the machine and move over towards the slide valve. Gently screw the machine adapter into the slide valve while holding the boring bar up so it doesn't damage any down there or let the tip break. Slowly let the boring bar fall to the top of the main where it'll sit on the main. Now you can take your measurement for the cut. Mueller recommends for this type of cutter 1 inch and 3/8. You can simply take your tape measure and mark it here and use a piece of black tape to mark the mark. You can also use any kind of marker you may have that will be visible. I have a small mark on the side here that I can see. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the yoke up so that we can lock in this yoke with the top of the shaft. Just do that by releasing it and unscrewing it counterclockwise until it's high enough to lock in. Okay, I have it high enough so that it's finally locked in. And what I want to do is just snug it down a little bit down against this boring bar till it's slightly snug. Now we can actually start our cut. I'm going to take the wrench for the cutter. We can also use an air attachment that we have that'll drive this shaft, but for today we're just going to use the hand cutter. We're going to put this on, and just like a ratchet, you can set it to go either direction, reverse or forward. We're going to put it clockwise, and we're going to go clockwise. So what we're going to do is turn the shaft approximately 10 times to every turn of the yoke. So as we're driving this down, we need to slowly move the yoke as we're cutting in this manner here. As you can see, I'm slowly letting this bar advance below me. And what this is doing is actually pushing the shaft down as it's turning. Okay, once we've reached our desired distance, we want to make sure that we're cut through. So what we can do is just try advancing the yoke straight down without the bar turning. We'll know we are through. Okay, we're good. So we are through on this tap. What we can do now is remove this from the tap. It's going to be under extreme pressure, so make sure we keep our wrench on. We back off this yoke a little bit so we can release it. Hold down on the top, release the yoke. So we're going to allow the pressure, just going to push this right up. We're going to hold it there while we close the gate valve below. Close that gate valve. We'll know, how do we know it's closed? We're going to take the pressure relief valve, and as we open it, we should hear a sound similar to this. Psst. That way we'll know all the pressure's out of the main. Continue to hold this boring bar so it doesn't fall on the gate valve itself, and remove the machine from the valve. So the next thing we're going to do is clean the main. We're going to use this brush by sweeping back and forth on the bottom of the main, like so, and we will clean the metal debris out to land a good spot for the rubber of the stopper to land and not receive any damage, get a good seal. So we're going to put this on now, and I'll show you the trick to this one. One thing to remember is before you ever open the valve, whenever you're using any of the equipment, you must equalize the pressure. And by doing that, you just simply hit this relief valve. That's going to allow pressure from below to go back into the top chamber of this valve. So now when you go to open this valve, it's easy and there's no pressure pushing up against it. So we're going to open it. The pressure's been opened. It's open now, and I can clean the bottom of the main. To clean the bottom of the main, you're simply going to push down and move back and forth in a quick manner. Once the main, you've done that 3 or 4 times, you can remove this from the valve. Simply pull it back up, shut the valve, and relieve the pressure. Again, you're going to hear that slight piston sound, so the air comes out. Psst, done. You'll know that the pressure is relieved. Now you can remove the cleaner. And we're going to get ready to install the stopper. The next we're going to talk about is the stopper in the shaft. We have to make sure we use a particular shaft for this stopper to allow this shaft inside the stopper to lift up while we're compressing this stopper. This particular shaft is hollow all the way up to here. We can screw this in. And insert it into the machine just like we would the cutter. Make sure our stop is lubed before we put it in by using the approved Mueller grease. Simply grab it, wipe it on. This will protect it and keep it from any damage when it's down inside the main and getting scraped from the cut. Okay, and just like the cutter, we want to make sure that it extracts all the way up by pushing the shaft down until the machine adapter hits the bottom as close to it as you can get. Now, just like the other piece, you want to hold this as you attach it onto the valve. Again, while holding this, you hold it so when you equalize it, the pressure doesn't drive this shaft up too hard. But we always want to equalize it so we can open the valve without any damage. That should allow the gas into the chamber now, so that if you let go of this, it shouldn't even move. And what you're going to do is take it and drive it right down to the bottom of the main. And just like the other machine, you have to raise the yoke up. It's going to take a while. Now, when performing the stop, you want to make sure that this shaft does not turn whatsoever. So you can do that by using the wrench. Holding it in the one spot. I like to let it lean right up against my body as I stand so I know that it's not going to move, because I want to use my 2 hands on the yoke. And what we want to do now is just simply drive this shaft straight down so it compresses that rubber. And by doing that, we're just going to turn the yoke, according to Mueller, approximately 10 to 14 turns. I've done that. I put a mark on one handle so I'll know when I complete a complete turn. There's one. I'm going to do this approximately 10 to 14 times until we've completed our stop. How do we know we have a complete stop? Somewhere on the main, we're going to have a gauge where we can gauge how much pressure is left in. Once you completed your stop, you can do your work. Once the work is completed, you can start releasing your stop. The best way to release the stop is a little bit at a time to give it time to relax, because you need to pull that stop out of that hole that's pretty much the same size as the stop. So by doing that, you're just going to let it off, maybe a couple turns at a time, and give it a minute in between to let it stop. Once you've reached that relaxation point all the way around, you can remove this from the main, simply pulling straight up, closing the valve, and remove the machine. Next up, we're going to install the completion plug and finish the job. Take this shaft off. We're going to install the completion plug shaft by removing this. Okay, we're ready to install the completion plug now. I've put a little lube on the threads of this plug. We're going to make sure that it's up and out of the way by pushing the shaft up, and let's install it on the main. All right. All right, this one here, we want to make room that we have enough to drive this down without the yoke getting in the way. Okay, so what we're going to do first is equalize the pressure. We now have pressure in this whole chamber. We can open the valve. We're going to open the valve. Okay, the valve is open. I'm going to push this shaft down until it hits the top. I'm going to take our wrench. Remember, this is under pressure. So you want to make sure that it doesn't hit you in the face. You just hold it and start turning it. Until it catches. Once you feel that it's kind of caught and you can start to feel the resistance, what you can do now is reach down and open this valve. You may still hear some gas leaking out. Continue to tighten until that slowly stops bleeding out. You'll know you're down tight. Once you're down tight, and I mean tight, give it a good little yank. Switch the wrench over to the reverse. Give yourself a little room, and what you're going to need to do now is give it a hard whack. And this will release the shaft while leaving the plug in the fitting. Just like that. While this bypass is still open, now you'll know if the plug starts coming out, you would hear more gas starting to leak out. If it stays secure, you won't hear anything as this comes up. It should only take about 6 turns and it should be out. I don't hear gas coming, and you can check by simply pulling straight up on the shaft. Still not hearing any gas, so you know that plug is secure. We can close the valve just to make sure. We'll close it and remove the machine. Now to finish the job, we want to open this valve slowly to make sure that plug is intact. I can see that it is, and there's no gas escaping, so we are good to go. Now we can remove this slide valve and get ready to put on the cap, dope it, soap it, and complete it. We would add some dope to the threads, install the cap, and tighten it down with the appropriate wrench, which in this should be a 24-inch pipe wrench.